Who doesn't love trains? Trains are freaking awesome. Bullet trains, high-speed rail trains, old-timey trains, and of course, steam trains. Okay, that last one is a little bit different. But you know what else is awesome? Zombies. So why haven't we mashed the two together at this point? Well, developer Do My Best and publisher tinyBuild have seemingly answered that call. The final station is set to depart to the PC and Mac destinations on August 30th, 2016 via Steam and the Humble Store routes. It sells for $14.99, and I beat the game in about 5 hours, earning 80% of the achievements along the way. But here's the question. Can this little old game keep chugging along happily as it reveals little by little of its mysterious world to a captive audience? Or will it stall along the way, unable to keep the engine powered due to a lack of gameplay and pace? That's what I'm here to find out, but before I begin, this key was obtained from the publisher tinyBuild for the purposes of review. That won't change my opinion of the game in the end, but you should know that because of FTC guidelines, as well as the whole morals thing, you know? Let's start off with the story this time around. You play as an unnamed conductor, delivering people and cargo from the various train stations within this fictional world, which would be a nice and relaxing job if there weren't creatures trying to kill you along the way. The story follows this singular conductor as he gets tied up in various shenanigans related to humanity's fight to stay alive. Now, he's rather important despite being a simple transporter, as he ends up moving important objects vital to humanity's survival from place to place, protecting it along the way, along with some passengers that happen to be along for the ride. He'll be forced to stop at various stations to continue his journey due to a stupid blocker system put into place regarding the trains. This system forces the conductor to leave the train and get a 4-digit code to unlock the train and move on, and he has to stop at every station. Now that system, while really stupid, really does a great job of adding a level of government bureaucracy to get angry at within the game's plot, because it doesn't make sense for it to exist. And yet, you can see it happening easily in today's modern world. Subtle political commentary, but really effective. Now you may ask, why not use a plane? Something that zombie-like creatures can't siege or deal with. And to that I say, look, you work with what the plot gives you. Yes, it's a plot hole, but frankly, you're getting an interesting premise here, so look the other way on this one. And given what you don't know about this world, there could be an easy answer to that question that you just don't know the answer to yet. You see, here's the thing about the final station. It's a different kind of storytelling than you may be used to. In terms of information, you really have no idea what's going on in the world at first. There's really no setup. You know that based on the store page, there's sorta zombies, but not really. You basically know there's a threat, and that's about it. The storytelling is done in 2 parts, with its imagery and the little notes and people that you find along the way in your journey. There's no long exposition or setup of the events, and every little item that you run across helps to add to the world. You're constantly looking for information, and letting your imagination fill in the pieces along the way. You get a person's information here, a note there, and it creates this big jigsaw puzzle. But you don't know if every piece is truly part of the same puzzle. And halfway through the game, you still have no idea what's truly going on. You got a fair share of information, but it can be hard to follow. Is the zombies a work of a religious group? Are they aliens? Is it a viral infection? Internally, you'll pose a lot of questions to yourself, and in terms of the game making you think about what it's telling you, it definitely works. You want these questions to be answered, and you're hoping that the game will give you something in terms of a payoff for the questions you pose. But that's also where the game can also start to fall apart. See, when you pose a lot of questions, you can get lost a little bit, which is actually fine. A little bit of mystery can go a long way. But the bigger issue here is your delivery of answers. Of course, you won't answer every question within your plot. Part of the fun is leaving some of the mystery out there. But in terms of the final station, I was left with a lot more questions than answers when the game was done. The game starts off real slow from a gameplay and a story perspective. Once it gets going, it does an alright job of bringing little elements here and there. But the last acts of the game goes full speed in terms of reveals and story elements. Ones that don't work. In particular with our conductor. The sudden reveals of some of the elements feels like the game hit the fast forward button, and you're sitting there unsatisfied. Too many questions are left unanswered, and the reveal loses any sort of effectiveness due to a lack of concrete elements within this world. This is where the final station is going to be very, very decisive for people. If you're the kind of player who needs their hand held in terms of storytelling and has trouble filling in the gaps, the final station is going to be a horrible narrative experience for you. But on the other hand, if you're the type of player who can let their imagination run wild, the core pieces of the final station really add up to an interesting story to tell. That will be a dehancer and an enhancer, which will come into play later in the review. Overall for me, the story had some interesting elements, but it fell flat in terms of its overall delivery. But it may not be entirely the writing's fault in the end, as you'll see in a later section of this review. Moving on, the strongest element of this game is probably its presentation, despite it being of a simple pixel art style. Look, I know, a lot of people are sick of the pixel art style in games lately, but for me, it's always about how it creates and presents its story and elements using the tools it has, and the final station is able to bring reasonable detail to its characters and tell a story without actually saying it via words. Now graphically, you do get little details, like a girl wearing a purse or a guy wearing a watch. Granted, it's nothing special, but the base elements and animations do work for the gameplay in question, even if I would like to see a lot more detail there. But what's more impressive in the presentation is the use of imagery. In particular, those that tell a story. There's so many interesting items within this game's world, and one that really does a great job of making you wonder what truly is going on. Just take a look at this scene. I have no idea what the hell is going on here. What is this contraption? What's it do? Why does it funnel into a wine glass? Does that guy drink that? Why is this world so weird? It's thanks to strong imagery and design that the game draws you in and makes you think and wonder. The game also does an extremely good job when it flips the switch environmentally, and it's able to set the mood that it's going for in the blink of an eye. You'll go from an open city that feels separated from the chaos of the world around it to the dark and disturbing claustrophobic hallways. In terms of setting and atmosphere, the final station definitely does the job. Sound and music-wise, the game has appropriate music to match the mood that the game puts forth, although it's pretty one-note in the whole. You get appropriate sounds to help add to the loneliness at times, like a dog barking in the background, but I felt like the overall use of both elements was rather reserved. It didn't stand out at all, but it also didn't distract. Take a listen to what I'm talking about. Let's finally get into the gameplay, which is a combination of management, action, and a little bit of puzzle elements all into one. As I mentioned before, most of your time will be spent in the specific towns that you run across, as you'll have to find that aforementioned code to continue on in your quest. Now, of course, things aren't going to be that easy, as there will be zombies along the way that will attempt to tear you apart. Or not zombies. I don't know what to call these things. I'm just going to keep on calling them zombies. Thankfully, the game gives you a gun or two to help you out, with a limited ammo capacity that'll force you to be conservative with your shots. If you're out of bullets, you can maybe grab a chair or two to throw, or you'll have to pick up fisticuffs and punch your enemies to death. The combat is simple, and it's all on a simple 2D plane with basic inputs. Depending on your control set, you'll look to aim with the mouse or right analog stick, and move with the A and D keys or the left analog stick. As for the controls themselves, both the controller and the keyboard are reasonable in terms of implementation, but the keyboard is slightly better in the long run due to the precise aiming of the mouse. And the controller had some weird hitches once in a while, where it'd think I would be moving to the left when I wasn't touching the controller, and this was seen on 2 separate Xbox 360 controllers for your information. So, how's the combat? Well, like I said, it's simple. Too simple, in fact. To the point where I was falling asleep while playing. Now look, simple fight mechanics and elements can work in a variety of ways. Whether it be through sheer enemy variety, sophisticated AI patterns, or just plain numbers and chaos, just because a game has a simple set of controls doesn't mean it's not going to be fun. Anyone who watches my reviews knows that I love the KISS principle, aka keep it simple, stupid. But the key to understand here is that simple doesn't have to be boring. And sadly, that's what the main combat in the final station is. Boring. See, once you learn your way around the game's mechanics, most everything becomes a relative breeze. Once you get a feel for the timing of punching zombies while backpedaling, you won't have to waste ammo ever. You'll be ready to go at any point. Sure, you may take a hit now and again, but nothing that will ever put you in real danger. You'll save your bullets for small and fast enemies, and the AI can easily be exploited for your own advantage. You do get around 4 to 5 different enemy types by the game's end, including zombies that will explode on you if shot after a period of time, or zombies you'll have to melee the helmet off before shooting them in the head. But most of the time, the same strategies apply in terms of meeting them, and rarely do you have to really think about what you're doing. It just drags on and on and on. After the first hour, I was sitting there, wanting something more in terms of gameplay. To say that the final station doesn't have a lot of tricks up its sleeves would be an understatement. If you play the first hour, you've played most of what you're going to experience gameplay-wise. Just missing an enemy or two. There's no new puzzles, no different time scenarios. Just going through different configuration of levels, doing the same old thing. Punching zombies, killing zombies in the head, and that's it. Variety is something that the final station does not have. The difficulty only really comes when it's self-inflicted, and most of the time, that has to do with not reacting fast enough around a ladder. And even then, you've got ways to cheese the situation, like moving yourself up and down the ladder and punching zombies before they get a chance to bite your face off. There's only one section of the game that truly gave me troubles, and that's this one. And I just want to tell the developers that this level design is particularly evil. Now, you're sitting here and going, well, what's the problem, Dragnix? You've shown me footage of dealing with a lot of zombies, and even fast zombies before. So what's different about this situation? Well, it's this ladder. See, if I get close to a ladder on the edge like this, I'm automatically going to start climbing it. Now, note the lack of distance between the smaller enemies here and myself. They'll be on top of me quickly, so either I take some damage and shoot them a couple of times, or I naturally try to back up. And backing up equals death, as I automatically grab the ladder even when I didn't want to. This allows them to get a few free hits in, and I'm dead. Now, you may think that would horribly frustrate me, but no, it didn't. Why? Because the game didn't punish me for dying. Checkpoints are abundant, and you don't lose any resources that you've gained. In fact, in some scenarios, it's beneficial to just let the enemies kill you, so you don't have to use any more health packs. If you're a gamer who's looking for a game that will challenge you, or need gameplay to carry the experience, the final station is not what you're looking for. It will bore you rather quickly, to the point where you may fall asleep during the game. That's a dehancer to the score, which will come up later in the review. Now, when you're not in the middle of towns, you've got two other gameplay sections. I mentioned the first where you sort of just walk around town, slowly getting story segments along the way. I won't go into that again. But the second is when you're on the train, and you have a management portion as well. Granted, that's a very small portion of the game, but it's there. Basically, you do a couple of things during this section. Passengers on the train have health and hunger you have to take care of. You get these items while you're in the towns. When they get hungry or hurt, you apply the item. In addition, one of the components of the train will always be acting up voltage-wise. You'll need to adjust the voltage based on which item is screwing up. If you don't, the train will take longer, meaning it takes longer to go through a set of checkpoints and you'll use more resources. It's basic as basic comes when it comes to management, and only really becomes an issue if you're A, narcoleptic and don't pay attention, or B, you don't search for items in town and use too many health kits. I had one person die during my entire run because I didn't have a med kit when I needed it. And honestly, it was mostly because I was getting majorly bored during the in-town gameplay. Look, devs, why even have this mechanic here? Why not take the time and put more effort into the town sections and let this be a story section? This is just busy work, and frankly, it hurt the game's overall pace. If you haven't figured it out by now, I wasn't a fan of this gameplay. Sure, it may work for some people, but it's way too simple, and for the general audience, there are better games out there for this type of style. In the end, the final station has an audience in those who are looking for a story with solid base concepts. If you let your mind wander freely, then the final station can really reward you. But the problems come with the lack of answers, and even more so, a lack of engaging gameplay. It becomes too repetitive, and rarely does the game ever give you a challenge. You'll get bored, and frankly, will want to play other games, and maybe catch a YouTube playthrough of the story. In the end, I give the final station a 62 out of 100, making it a deep sale title on my scale. However, with all my big reviews, apply the appropriate enhancers based on the kind of gamer that you are. I'll link to my original guide here, of course, but basically, enhancers are score modifiers that take into account more subjective parts of the game and try to adjust the score based on what kind of gamer you are. Again, one of the most important parts of this channel is finding the right game for you, and the perfect game for one person could be another person's nightmare. And as always, I do recommend getting a second opinion on the game. For that, I check OpenCritic, which has a list of reviewers that you can follow and defollow based on if you like their content or not. I'm part of the OpenCritic's Contributors program, which allows smaller channels like myself the chance to be listed along with the big fish. Anyway, I'll see you later, and expect a live lock review in short order. And as always, keep on gaming.